6,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, a civilization appeared that shouldn't have existed. The Sumerians had advanced law, medicine, and a map of the solar system that included planets we wouldn't discover for another 5 millennia. But when asked how they knew all this, their answer was always the same. The Anunnaki told us. Literally translated as, those who from heaven to earth came. Were they myths, or are they the missing link in human evolution? Today, we're decoding the secrets of the Anunnaki. In the quiet halls of the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford sits a four-sided clay prism covered in ancient script. Known as the Weld-Blundell prism, it contains one of the most complete versions of the Sumerian king list, a document that purports to be a simple record of the rulers of ancient Sumer and their dynasties. At first glance, it seems like a straightforward historical ledger, meticulously chronicling the lineage of power in the cradle of civilization. But as scholars began to translate the cuneiform text, they uncovered something that defied all conventional understanding of history. The list begins with a truly staggering claim. For the first 8 kings, who ruled before a great flood swept over the land, their reigns are recorded with impossibly long durations. One king is said to have ruled for 28,800 years, another for 36,000. In total, the list claims these first 8 kings ruled for a combined 200 years. How could this be? Is it a simple scribe's error, repeated across multiple copies? Or is it something more? Mainstream historians and archaeologists have a ready explanation. They call this mythological exaggeration. They argue that these incredible lifespans were not meant to be taken literally. Instead, they were symbolic, a way for ancient scribes to convey the immense power, divine status, and godlike legitimacy of the earliest rulers. In this view, the numbers are pure metaphor, a poetic flourish to describe a golden age that existed only in myth. But the list pushes back against such a simple dismissal. It is remarkably specific, grounding these mythological reigns in real-world geography. It names the very cities where the kingship was lowered from heaven, places like Eridu and Bad Tabira, which we know from archaeological evidence were actual, physical settlements. The text doesn't read like a fairy tale, it reads like a chronicle, blending the plausible with the seemingly impossible. The most compelling detail is the list's great dividing line, a catastrophic flood. The text explicitly states that after the flood swept over the earth, kingship was once again lowered from heaven. But something had fundamentally changed. The reigns of the subsequent kings suddenly dropped to recognizably human lifespans. This sharp, dramatic shift from millennia to decades is too precise to be accidental. The list includes figures like Gilgamesh, once thought to be a myth, but now considered by many to be a real historical king of Uruk. If the later parts of the list are accepted as containing historical truth, why do we so readily assume the first ones, the long-lived, pre-flood gods, were complete fictions? In 1976, a controversial and paradigm-shifting theory was introduced by author and researcher Zecharia Sitchin. In his book series, The Earth Chronicles, Sitchin presented a radical reinterpretation of ancient Sumerian texts, most notably the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation. While his work is widely dismissed by mainstream scientists and historians as pseudo-archaeology, it captured the public imagination and offered a compelling, alternative narrative for human origins. Sitchin claimed these ancient tablets were not myths, but historical records. He proposed that they told the story of extraterrestrial visitors, the Anunnaki, who came to Earth from a distant planet in our own solar system. He called this planet Nibiru. According to Sitchin's interpretation, Nibiru is no mere speck in the cosmos. He described it as a massive planet, the 12th planet in his system, locked in a vast 3,600-year elliptical orbit. This immense journey brings it from the outer reaches of our solar system, swinging it back in through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, before catapulting it back out into the void. It was during one of these periodic crossings, Sitchin argued, that the Anunnaki first came to Earth, hundreds of thousands of years ago. But why travel across the vastness of space to our primitive world? The mission, he claimed, was one of desperate survival. Nibiru's atmosphere was failing, thinning to a critical degree and exposing the planet to deadly solar radiation. The Anunnaki scientists determined that the only solution was to suspend fine particles of gold in their upper atmosphere, creating a protective thermal shield. And Earth, it turned out, was rich in this precious metal. The initial labor force for these extensive mining operations was not human. It consisted of a lower class of Anunnaki gods, known in the texts as the Igigi. For an astonishing 150,000 years, they toiled in the mines of southern Africa and Mesopotamia. But the work was grueling, the conditions unbearable, and eventually they reached a breaking point. The Igigi mutinied, refusing to work any longer. Facing a crisis that threatened their entire mission, the Anunnaki Council was at an impasse. It was then that the chief scientist and leader, Enki, proposed a revolutionary solution. He suggested they create a Lulu, a primitive worker, to take over the burden of labor. The plan was audacious. They would take the most advanced hominid on the planet, likely Homo erectus, and upgrade them. By mixing their own Anunnaki essence, their genetic material, with the DNA of this native primate, they could fashion a new being. The result was a hybrid species, the first of its kind, which the tablets call the Adamu. In Sitchin's view, this is the true story of humanity's genesis. We weren't a product of slow, natural selection. We were a biological shortcut, genetically engineered for a single purpose: to serve the gods and mine their gold. This new workforce was designed to be intelligent enough to understand commands and perform complex tasks, yet subservient enough not to rebel as the Igigi had. We were, in essence, custom-made slaves. Within the Anunnaki leadership, the tablets describe a cosmic sibling rivalry with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. On one side stood Enlil, commander of the Earth mission, a figure of stern authority, focused on order and discipline. On the other, his half-brother Enki, the brilliant chief scientist and architect of humankind. Their conflicting philosophies would set the stage for a drama that has echoed through millennia. Was this a simple family feud, or a philosophical war over the very soul of their creation? Enki, whose name means Lord of the Earth and Waters, saw humanity as his children. According to the texts, he was not just their creator, but their advocate. He saw their potential for growth, for intelligence, for civilization. It was Enki who argued for their advancement, who gave them the ability to reproduce, and who, against the council's wishes, eventually gifted them the secret of the gods, the capacity for knowledge and self-awareness. He was a protector, a teacher, a rebel who believed his creation deserved a chance to thrive. Enlil, however, saw things very differently. From his perspective, the mission on Earth was paramount. The humans, or Lulus, had served their purpose as workers, but now they were a problem. He saw them as a loud, chaotic, and rapidly overpopulating nuisance. The texts describe his growing fury, complaining that the noise of humanity was so great he could not sleep. When a cyclical, catastrophic deluge, a great flood, was foreseen approaching Earth, Enlil saw an opportunity. He decreed that the Anunnaki would not warn the humans, forcing the other gods to swear an oath of secrecy. For Enlil, it was a perfect passive solution to wipe the slate clean. But Enki could not let his creation perish. In an act of profound betrayal to his kin, but loyalty to mankind, he broke his oath. The story tells of Enki going to the reed hut of a faithful man named Ziusudra and whispering the coming disaster, not to him directly, but to the wall itself, thus technically keeping his vow. He provided detailed instructions for building a great boat, a submersible vessel to survive the deluge. This single act of defiance saved the human race. The parallels are undeniable. Ziusudra in Sumerian lore, Atrahasis and Utnapishtim in Akkadian and Babylonian texts, and the figure of Noah in the Bible. Could it be that every God versus man story, every great flood myth in history, is just an echo of this ancient cosmic family feud? Look closely at the carvings. Across cultures, from Sumer to the Olmecs in Mexico, the gods are carrying the same mysterious handbag. What was in it? Some say it was a portable seed bank. Others say it was the technology to manipulate me, the divine decrees of civilization. And on their wrists, objects that look remarkably like modern watches. Are we seeing 6,000-year-old depictions of wearable technology? Or is it just a symbolic representation of time that we've lost the key to? The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki would one day return. If Nibiru exists on a 3,600-year orbit, the clock is ticking. Are the Anunnaki our creators, our masters, or a forgotten chapter of a much more complex human story? The question: if a 10-foot god landed in Iraq tomorrow and claimed to have written your DNA, would you worship them, or would you see them as just another colonizer? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more ancient mysteries. I'll see you in the next one.